Good morning, everyone. I'm Paulina, and this is Patty.
Hello.
Welcome to this morning session. Just so you know, we're actually trialing a new tool for webinars this week. So as you could see, it's not Crowdcast anymore, it's Zoom. So we had some problems with Crowdcast before, so we're trying something different and something better. Hopefully this works, and any feedback, just let us know.
We'd love to hear it. We're really going for more stability and better quality in our webinars in terms of streaming. So trying to get more consistency around that to ensure that you guys have the best experience possible when it comes to actually hearing what we've got to say and seeing what's happening in Streamtime. So that's why we've kind of made the decision so far. So we're going to test it out and see how we go.
Exactly.
And we do use Zoom for, all of our meetings. When we have chats with clients, we'll often just hook up a Zoom meeting. So we've used it quite a bit in the past. Hopefully, we've spoken together as well over the phone a few times, and you've used Zoom for those meetings too. So hopefully it's a pretty familiar experience and not too much. And we have got some things like, the ability to ask questions, chat with everyone, and still run polls, which we can do in Zoom too. So we're going to try a few of those today.
Awesome. Speaking of polls, we've got one running. Thanks, buddy. Actually, so the webinar session is on reporting, and we've created a poll for you. So it will hopefully give us an idea what reports are most important for you, and we can plan our session around that too.
And I'm just going to launch that one now. So everybody feel free to vote throughout the session as you like, as you can, and that will be an area that we'll be wrapping up in today. So
yes,
as Paulina said, we'll come back to those and we'll take a look at which ones are most important and focus on those.
Yeah, thanks. And also you are able to ask questions throughout the webinar as well. So you should see ask a question area where you can send those questions through. We will go through them at the end of the webinar, and we will mention them as we start answering. So your questions won't be missed. But everything else is pretty much straightforward. You can chat to each other as well. So there's a little chat on the side. You can say hello.
Feel free to introduce yourself, everybody.
Introduce yourself. We are all very happy to see you. This session should be really useful for all of you. Perfect. Cool. Perfect.
Awesome. So without further ado, let's start talking about what we're talking about today.
So we ran this kind of webinar a couple of months ago, last year actually. It feels like ages ago.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, 2019, and it was a really good hit, big hit for us. Reporting is obviously a very important thing in any business. To be able for you to understand what's going on in your company. Are you making any profit or you're not? It will hopefully help you make those better business decisions in the future and understand the health of your company as well. Exactly. So different types of reports that you can create in Streamtime. So that we will be showing, we will be talking to you about them later on. But first of all, we will start with an importance of the setup in Streamtime. So we won't be able to produce this valuable information in Streamtime if you don't set it up correctly. And it's important to add this information in first thing so you can start using Streamtime to the best of its abilities.
Exactly.
So the biggest thing for the setup is obviously adding your contacts in and the cost rate. So Patty, do you mind just sharing that screen?
Let me open up the screen so we can share it.
Awesome.
Alrighty.
So you would start working from your profile and settings area in Streamtime. So that's where you would add this information.
Cool. So I'm going to come into my profile and settings area. And when we're setting things up, there are three areas that are going to be really crucial. The first is contacts. So I think that actually lives just in here in your first menu. So when we're adding contacts, we want to ensure that we've got that contact list already set up so that we know we're using the same clients on each job where, we're using that client again, for example. So to ensure that we're not setting up multiple versions of the same client, you'll want to have a list of contacts already set up. Now, if you do use Xero or have another list of clients somewhere, you can easily import this. Just come into the contacts area, come and import companies, and use this link here to download a template CSV. Now that'll just give you a file and you'll just need to drop the columns from another CSV that you've already got. of your companies into that, and then you can just re-upload that. And you'll need to do companies before you do people. But what that means is that you'll have a nice long list of companies that you use regularly here, and they're all set up, ready to go. So that's a good first step.
After that,
the next one we can do?
All right. So the cost rates are extremely important to be realistic and set up in Streamtime first thing. Those are the cost rates of your team members, and they are based on individual salary plus overheads. And we also recommend to add a bit of profit in there as well, just to stay safe in case some of the jobs won't go along the plan, and so you can still make some profit.
Adding a bit more room to move in that cost rate just acts as a bit of a cushion. It guarantees that when you're looking at the cost of an hour versus the sell of an hour or the profit, any even particularly unexpected costs are kind of being accounted for in that. And, you know, even if it is awfully comfortable and giving yourself lots of room to move, so long as that cost rate is lower than the sell rate, you'll know that you'll always actually be making a profit there. And so long as, you know, they're not at ends with each other and that cost rate's higher than the sell rate, then you shouldn't be having any problems. It just means that whatever ends up in the bank account at the end of the day should actually be a lot healthier than, you know, what you might be perceived to see in Streamtime. But again, it's just creating that safe illusion for yourself, knowing that the cost is nice and low there.
Exactly. And with regards to overheads as well. So those are your costs for the building, for for your team lunches and electricity bills, any of those costs that you pay for the whole business, and it can be divided by number of employees in your team. And that's how you would calculate that for each individual.
We've seen some people who've come up with like gnarly formulas, but it is essentially all of the costs that allow your team to work and to operate. So what does it cost to run the business? So at least have everybody here together in this space right now. So it includes, you know, the office itself, the computers you're using, and like you said, any other expenses that just come along the way, the food that's in the fridge, all the rest of it.
Beers in the fridge.
Beers in the fridge.
Games that you play,
exactly.
Everything. All right, let's move on. Items and expenses. Items and expenses is another area where I highly recommend you spend some time. And those are your services that you provide. And it's really important to stay consistent on those. So even just a little small differences with names of an item can create wrong reporting in the future. So it won't be realistic. So you want to spend some time here and create those services and what you offer in your team, in your company, and add those sell rates underneath those services so you can charge your client correctly.
Again, it's kind of just further, kind of like we said with the contacts before, it's just to ensure consistency in reporting at the end of the day when you are reporting across items and expenses, whether that's time or looking at the profit on those things. Ensuring that they've all got the same name consistently used on each job means that they'll be collected together and nice and streamlined, and making it really easy to kind of dig into that data.
Yeah, and with expenses as well, those are your third-party suppliers, your freelancers, your contractors that you've been using, and those are the money coming from your pocket, obviously. So adding that cost rate and sell rates to those expenses is extremely important, and that will play a big role in your overall profit of your company.
Exactly.
So setting the items and expenses in advance helps you create those accurate reporting in the future, and that's ideally what you want.
And the other thing is it makes building a job much lighter as well, because you'll already have a list of things that you work on to kind of just select and choose from, as opposed to having to type out the entire name of an item or an expense. So just having that drop down of services or expenses there just makes life really easy. And on one other thing to mention as well, that when you are setting up these items and expenses, if you've got Xero connected or another accounts package, you can also assign revenue and expense accounts to these as well. So when they are sent to Xero in this example, it means that they're going to be consistently assigned to the right account, and you can always do that reporting down the track later if you're looking at those kinds of things in Xero as well. So understanding that the journey starts here with the names of these items and setting them up with the right codes, using those on jobs consistently, and then sending them across to zero to get to keep them consistent and get that report.
Yeah. Perfect.
Awesome. So what's next, Polly?
What's next? Okay, so how would reporting work in Streamtime? So we're just going to touch base on how will the screen work for you and what are the areas that you need to focus on when you create a report. So first of all, let's have a look at the screen. So for me, it looks a bit overwhelming. It's quite a lot of jobs going on at once. So to make a good report,
it is your jobs list, isn't it?
Exactly. So you will have a lot of jobs here, I assume. So we've got all this information that we need. You can add more information if you like. So you can go into those side panel here where you can add columns. Which means you're adding this extra information to your screen. So it can be anything to do with time has been planned, what is the budget for this job, and how well are we tracking. Maybe you want to have a look at the due date of a job as well. So you can add those columns in. You can also filter them the way it works for you. So you can move them to the top of your report so you can see them after the certain column.
Yeah, so this due date, I might want to rearrange that. So I can actually grab the handle next to those columns and change the order in which they appear. So you can group different columns together. For example, I might be looking at financials and dates, but I don't really want that due date appearing between two financial columns, so I can separate them just by reorganizing them with those grab handles. And you mentioned, yeah, you can add all of the different columns that you need to see, but another thing as well is that you can turn off columns that you don't need to see.
Exactly.
To kind of just focus you on exactly what it is you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. And using filters is another way for you to filter this information and see what exactly that you're looking for. So filtering those columns, maybe you want to only see jobs with the label internal.
Okay.
So
maybe
internal, perfect. So using filters will filter that information and make a short report where you can actually have a better understanding on a certain section of your business. So you can play around with those as well. Turn them on, turn them off if you like. So once you kind of finalize your favorite report that you would like to save, say it is work in progress report, we can save it as favorite as well. So you obviously it will take you some time to come up with that perfect amount of columns and filters. And once you've done that, you can save it as favorite just in the bottom.
Might even just say this one, jobs due this week.
Jobs due this week, perfect.
Save.
So this report will be saved under your favorite area, and the favorite area there where the little heart is, and where you can always go back and have a look at the jobs that are due this week.
Exactly.
This report will update what's the job progress as well. So
exactly, yeah. So just kind of understanding the different mechanisms that we're using here in reporting and how they're working together. And one thing I'd like to talk about just before we go any further with filters is understanding in a little bit more depth how you can kind of use these filters. So at the top here, you do have this option to match all selected filters or match any selected filters. So by default, we kind of have this matching all selected filters. So, you know, we're looking at jobs that have a particular label. Yep, they're internal, and maybe, yep, Paddy is working on those. It's going to show me which jobs match both of those criteria or all of those criteria. But if you do have maybe two different sets of criteria and it's a more open report that you're looking for, so either all jobs that are internal or all jobs that Paddy is working on, you can actually select this option to say match any of those filters, and Streamtime's just going to find all of the jobs that Paddy's working on and the jobs that have internal and kind of put them together in a list. So it's not going to push one to the side. It's going to allow you to combine those things together.
Yep. And
we can also even here, let's just say, maybe I know Tiny Aaron is, I think that's, there we go. Oh no, Tiny Aaron, I think that's the label I'm after. So Tiny Aaron might be the account manager on these. And in this instance, I'm looking at jobs where a job label is internal and they have a job label for Tiny Aaron, but I might want to actually click that and say, well, they might have a job label for internal, or Tiny Aaron is the account manager, and we're using the label to kind of indicate that. So knowing that you can really dig into those is really cool.
Yeah, you've mentioned a lot about labels, and I think I want to highlight how important is using labels in Streamtime. So labels allow you to define your own criteria to run those reports. It allows you to group those jobs together as well, the way that works for you. So it can be an account manager, as you just said.
Yeah.
So Tiny Aaron or anyone who is responsible for this job. Maybe it can be a VIP client. So you want to really take care and really have a good, just know that this client is VIP client, so you can look after that job.
High priority, yeah.
High priority, that's the word. And even can be just the stage of the job as well. Maybe this job is actually with client for approval. So you can group those jobs together. So you know what are the jobs are with client, and you can kind of have an idea when they're going to be approved. So it's totally up to you. You can create as many labels as you want, as long as well you stay consistent on the labels themselves.
Again, we kind of do get this list, once we start typing. Streamtime's going to pull up all the labels that already exist, so we can just select the one that we already are using in the system to ensure that we're using those consistently across all the jobs. But yeah, labels can be anything. People will do them, create labels for the types of jobs they're working on. If you've got a print job maybe, and you need to keep track of all those together so that you can isolate all those jobs in a single report, you can do that.
Even labeling internal jobs is very good, because you can then understand how much time of your team spent on an internal non-billable job. So you can then compare how much time spent on a billable job too. So just keep in mind that labels are really, really useful.
Knowing that you've got options. Cool.
Plenty.
And you can define those yourself. So let's kind of move into the final area of the webinar today, Pauline. Talk about some real reports that people want to see and run. So obviously we've been running this poll, and thanks everyone for voting. It looks like there's been quite a bit of feedback there and quite a bit of balance across those all actually. So looks like we'll talk about all of them.
Yeah. Well, the winner, I could see it's the job time used versus planned. Cool. Okay. That's awesome, though. It's well done. Everyone is really interested in those reports. So let's talk about everything.
Let's start with that one, though. Job time used versus planned. And that's a pretty easy one we can build right now. So when we are in this jobs list, I'm just going to cut out a few things here. First of all, I want to look at my jobs that are not internal. These are jobs that obviously have clients for. I've got these job statuses already applied, so things that are currently active. And I do want to see this data for all of those jobs together. Now, the use versus planned here is going to show me really what I want to see. That due date will come in handy. I might not need to look at labels here, but I might actually bring that use versus planned to the top here. I might even switch off the time planned, because we're already seeing that. And I'm keeping this one really bare bones. I might even sort this one by the due date, so we can see when that work's really got to be done by. And we're giving you totals down the bottom here too. So currently there's 307 hours and 53 minutes of time used out of 913 hours that are currently planned for the studio. And these things, again, that are currently in progress that we're hacking away at. And this is a nice clean report, making it really accessible for me to get that data, because I've really limited the number of columns that I'm looking at to see just the essentials. And so I'm going to save this one. I'm going to say WIP time used be planned, save.
On this note as well, I actually really like adding this used versus planned chart. A little graphic in here, so it's more visual. I could see that, okay, so, this job, the ASAP job on the bottom is in red. Something happened here. All right, so someone actually spent more time than planned, and then you will then be able to click into this job and see what's going on really within that job. What are the items? What are the what's been tracked over time?
Exactly. And let's drill into this. Let's see. All right, looks like that was most of my time that was spent doing that. And it looks like there was just a few hours on that particular day where time needed to go against design for some reason. Maybe we got a call, maybe they didn't like it, maybe it was our mistake, who knows.
Yeah, but that report allows you to identify that super quickly. Exactly. So then you can question your team, I guess.
Exactly. Cool. We've got some favorites already set up here. So, I mean, the next one we've kind of people have addressed as an important report is looking at job costs. Yeah. So when we're looking at costs on jobs, we're looking at time and expenses and maybe the total cost of that altogether. Yeah. So we're interested to see how much is this job currently costing us. Again, I'm going to use, oh, you know what? I might even include our internal jobs on this one.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, let's include it. And again, this is going to be just a really simple application of a few different columns. So we're going to look at the total cost, the cost of expenses, and the cost of time used so far. And again, I'm just going to rearrange those columns so that they're appearing in a nice chronological order for me. So looking at time, expenses, and then the total cost, which is just going to be the addition of those two lines together, really. Yeah. And we're getting the totals down the bottom here. If you do want to see what the potential cell of all of that is, I would suggest maybe adding a total cell column there too, which you can draw to the end, and instantly you're able to see the difference between those two things, the total cost and the total cell. So long as that cost is sitting nice and under, it should be okay, giving you some insights into profit.
Yeah, they will also lead you to a profitability report later on. So as Patty said, we can add a total cell. You can see that it's much higher than the total cost, which is what you need to have to make some profit. And then
keep in mind we have got internal jobs included in here too. Exactly. So it's operationally as a business, we're okay.
Yeah, exactly. So and then you can even spend more time on this screen and add in more columns to be able to create a profitability report of how profitable your jobs are. Maybe let's exclude the internal jobs.
I've already got a profit report set up. Awesome, so I'm going to click into that and we can kind of dig into any filters that I've got applied. So already job status, we've got these by default, things that are active. Job label does not contain internal and is not an opportunity job, and that opportunity label there is used for forecasting, which was another thing that people were interested in looking at. We can chat a little bit about that in a minute.
We ran a webinar last week about it, so
you know what? We'll send a link to the webinar.
You just reading my mind.
So in this profit report, we're looking at expenses, time, total profit, and then a profit margin.
So how would profit margin be calculated?
So the profit margin, we only get a profit margin once we've got an invoiced amount on the job, and it's essentially the total profit of a job divided by that invoiced amount. So it's looking at, well, how much of that job was actual profit, and it looks like it's pretty healthy in these instances. Please forgive, this is a demo database, so some of these figures are perhaps slightly unrealistic.
Yeah, super high, 89% profit margin.
But you know, maybe that's just good news. Who knows?
It is good news.
It is
we
good
should
news.
Stay positive.
You're absolutely right. So the expenses profit we're seeing here is just the difference between the cost and the cell that we've added to that expense. It's the markup. The time profit, again, that is just the difference between the cost and the cell of all of the hours on the job, and that cost is coming from those team members. So just reiterating that it's really important that they're set up is crucial. And then again, the total profit here, we'll only see these once we have got an invoice on the job. Profits are really, you know, when you put the word profit somewhere, you have to kind of ensure that that is true profit that's coming in. And so we will only show you profit once you have an invoice created on a job, because when that invoice is created, it implies or it means that there's money coming in from the client and that we can actually say, yes, that is money being made.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And to reverse engineer it a little bit, it's a win-win situation here. So you would have to spend some time in this profile and settings and adding that data in. Otherwise, we won't be able to produce those profit reports, and maybe you won't even know how profitable you can be in your business. So it's very important.
Exactly. And it's nice to also just see these summaries at the bottom too. So what is the total profit of these jobs? And what is that profit margin? Very good, very good, very nice. We're happy with that. Okay.
All right, billable versus non-billable time.
Cool.
That's a good one. Everyone loved that question, and I get that all the time. I'm sure you do as well. And
Definitely.
obviously, it's important for you to know where your team time goes and whether it's more billable jobs or non-billable time. So to do that, do we have a favorite report?
We don't really have a favorite for this one, but we can kind of use a label that's already been created, which is that internal label, and how you define, those non-billable jobs is entirely up to you. Sometimes it'll be internal, sometimes it'll be a non-billable label as well. And that's, you can always use those two labels in conjunction.
Yeah,
so let's say internal, or maybe I'll even say contains internal. I know there are two different internal labels there. And looks like there is no non-billable job, but maybe that pro bono label as well is being applied to non-billable jobs. And I might just include archive jobs here just to reach all, or I'll use the or as well there to give us options. It's not combining those labels, it's looking for both of them together.
Yeah. Alternatively, you can say does not contain internal or pro bono, so that will give you a report of the jobs that are billable jobs.
Exactly. So that'll just flip the criteria, which is really nice. So I'm going to save this one as a favorite. And this is non-billable time. And again, we are in the time list here. So we're looking at the total hours used and the cost and sell of those hours, which is what we're really interested in. So non-billable time, I've got this favorite here. And now let's just flip those. So does not contain and is not. And I'm just going to save that one as a new favorite. So let's just say billable time. Perfect. So now I've got these two reports here, which I can come back to really easily with a single click.
Awesome. Time by team member. That's another way for you to see where your team spend time on.
I've got a good one here as well. I think it's team time this month.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Perfect. Those, I think this is the favorite report that everyone gets when they sign up in Streamtime. So just check on your favorite reports, and I'm pretty sure it's all set up there for you unless you've changed it. So this report gives you your team time this month, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You can see that all of the team members that track time, and also cost rates and sell rates against them as well. So you can see you are making profit here, and actually how much time has been spent on what. So if you want more information, you can just click on Danielle.
Always hone in.
Yeah, Danielle is very busy. She's just working away. She's spent a lot of time just on the City of Sydney job, and you can see that she actually did track time, which is awesome. If you don't track time, we won't be able to give you that report. So
exactly. And one other thing while we're looking at this time report and looking at how we're kind of grouping this information, which is allowing us to kind of see the data in different ways, which is really interesting. Let's have a look at the item name, because that will help us reiterate a point we made before about setting up your items consistently. And we can see here, there is a very clear set of items that we use in our business, and they're streamlined. They're consistently used on all of our jobs, which means that all the time being tracked is getting filtered into most of those items. Any time that's, maybe can't fit into any of those is coming through as extra hours tracked. So looking across item name is really useful, and knowing that we've actually got an item name filter too means that even across team members, I might want to see who has been working on maybe design, and I can say this week or last month, for example, and it looks like there wasn't a heap of time over the course of the month, but I can really easily see that.
Yeah, and also on this extra hours tracked. So this is the time that doesn't belong to any item. And if you feel like your team spend a lot of time on this extra hours tracked, what is it? You can have a look and understand. Maybe your team spend a lot of time on the calls with the client. Maybe it's worth to create a separate item of communication between clients and your team, so the team can actually track that time against that item. Maybe you should be charging your client for that as well. And
an easy way to see that extra hour time is by looking at time that was not planned. So extra hours tracked is what we call those hours, that time, and it's not planned. meaning it wasn't assigned to an item. So things that we didn't really predict, how much time is currently sitting in that, what did that cost us,
Exactly.
what could it potentially have been sold for, should we sell it? Cool.
Perfect. And the last one on our list, now, Paul, is the expected revenue. So forecasting revenue, forecasting how much money is going to come into your business. That's always good news, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So you do have, I'm pretty sure you do have a report.
Opportunity work is the one, and it's not the healthiest report. Maybe we, you know, maybe we've just taken all those jobs on, so now they're actual real life jobs, and we need to create more opportunities.
Nice save.
Thank you.
But look, it's actually a lot. It's 400,000.
Yeah, that Barcelona job is a serious winner.
That's what we touched base on last week's webinar too. So using those labels to identify those opportunity work, and actually understanding how much budget, how much money will be coming in.
Exactly.
So that's important as well.
Exactly. And creating that expected revenue, those forecasts is really easy. It's just a matter of setting up a job. All you really need is a job name, a client, and a budget. Now that budget here has been taken from the quote, but you can just type that in, and that is just the anticipated amount of how much you might be making off that job. So it is a figure that will probably change, but it allows you to at least gauge, you know, you're probably running forecasts anyway as a business. So that is a way you can manage it in Streamtime and keep those things together. The nice thing with that is that once that job comes through, the job's already set up and ready to go. If you do use an item like this, just a job notes item, which can be used to store any information about the job, you'll have all of that correspondence and any information that might be good to know throughout the job that happened before. You can just keep it there, keep track of it, and have that on store.
Yeah, and really you have a good understanding on when do you think this job will come through. So you can add a date to any item. So they will give us a due date of this job, this opportunity work. So yeah, you can report on that and your potential profit. Maybe, you know, it's a good pay rise talk, I guess.
Cool.
It's been half an hour.
It's been half an hour.
Perfect.
It's been a good session. It looks like
question?
there was one single question there from Roger, which we'll finish up with. Is there a way to remove duplicate labels if someone has entered or misspelled a label and replace a label? If an account manager changes, can you bulk replace old with new? So good question, Roger. For the first part, to remove duplicate labels if someone has accidentally misspelled a label, the easiest way to do that is to just come in here to the jobs list, do a filter or a search for whatever that label might be. And I know there are 2 internal labels here, and maybe I'll find where that spelling error happened and locate all the jobs that have that label. Or maybe I can actually find which label was spelled incorrectly. Maybe this internal job, I'd like to replace that to just internal so that we've got it consistent. So I can find the label that has been spelled incorrectly really easily, add a label which is internal, which is the correct one, and then remove that old label. So it's super easy there to replace any old ones. Now, in terms of the second question, replacing labels in bulk, it's not something you can currently do. But again, I would suggest just a similar process. Finding all the jobs that have a particular label, or let's say Tiny Aaron, and just working through adding the new label. Again, once we've got that in the system, or it looks like there's a poly, so I'm creating an inconsistency here. Sorry, I didn't see that one before. Thanks, and then just coming through and deleting the old Tiny Aaron labels that you no longer need.
Exactly.
So pretty easy, pretty clean. Took me all of a couple of seconds to do those ones there.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, that's been 34 minutes. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
We're keen to get some feedback from you on how we went today in Zoom. So interested to see how the quality is as well. But yeah, reach out if you have any questions, email help@streamtime.net.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, buddy.